Remove the plastic fender well covers, and on the driver's side, remove the fuel filler neck. These are the police Nivomat shocks. And they're held on by 16mm bolts at the top. Dodge has a really complicated process for how they want these removed, but I'm hoping that I can just loosen these up and then use basically a come along to secure the shock compressed and take it out of here rather than undoing basically the whole rear suspension. So we will see. It definitely makes it go much quicker. And the bottom of the shock has a 18mm deep socket to remove that nut. So at this point the bolt is holding it in, and then the fact that the Nivomat tries to level itself is also holding it in. So Dodge actually wants you to basically unbolt everything to make this whole part loose and drop down. I think that's way too much work. So what I'm going to try to do is secure this with a ratcheting strap and try to pull the shock down, compress it until I can slide it out of here. You can see how I use the ratcheting strap to compress the old shock and get it out of there. And you see above it is the RT style regular shock. I thought I was saving some time by doing the straps, but to get the springs out you have to undo all this stuff anyway. So there is a bolt there coming over to here. It's right there. So is to put a jack right there, as well as a jack to hold up the side. So basically the procedure is going to be to remove the two bolts, and it says to only do it on one side at a time, and then you're going to slowly lower this jack just enough to get the spring out. Don't lower it any farther so that anything breaks or anything, so we're going to do it real slow lowering there. The other things that may have to come off, we'll see as I do this, are some of these electrical connectors, possibly the muffler hangers. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping that we can just kind of push this down just a little bit just to get that spring out of there. I thought about putting the spring compressor, but it wasn't working. I compressed the spring, put the spring compressor on it, lowered this, and it still wasn't budging. So it's 18mm bolt. You can see as I'm lowering this jack under here that the spring has loosened up. And you can see the police one is the dirty one on the left, and the new RT one is the one on the right. You want to get your isolator out of the bottom, one off the top. Alright, I got the spring in. It is not easy to say the least. I had to put a jack in here to basically spread this. According to Dodge, you want to do the bottom first on the spring and then put the top in. That did work, however, it was not easy, and I did jam my finger when it finally snapped into place. While you're doing your springs and shocks, if you need to get to any of the links, you can. This is the time to replace any of these if you're needing to. This one here is called the camber link, and it runs right there. There's bolts there and bolts there to take it out. This one's called the toe link in the back, and you do have to remove the speed sensor wiring when you change that one out. There's bolts front and rear. This one right here is called the compression link. Again, bolts on each side of it. This one here is called the tension link. Again, bolts on either side. Basically, you do all of those when you've got the shock out of here, because basically doing any of them requires the shock out. So once you got the shock out, you may as well do any of the links that you're going to do. I am partway through this project and found out that the suspension kit that I purchased for this is actually a front suspension kit. They kind of conveniently left that part of the description out. So I thought I was getting all these different control arms and bushings and so forth, and all I got was the front. So I'm gonna have to run with the rear as is and see if just changing out the spring and shock fixes the problem of the wheels leaning in, as well as the extremely rough ride. Other thing I learned, unfortunately too late in the process to get a refund or anything, is that you cannot use RT shocks or SRT shocks. You have to use either the police shocks, which are about $200 something a piece, or these Bilsteins. I think these are the only two that work on the police car. Now, there may be a way to transfer the hardware from the top of the police shock to the RT shock, but I wasn't able to get the bolt loosened or anything, and in the interest of not destroying the shock any further, I just went ahead and bought these. So these are about half the price of the Nivomat police ones, and they're supposed to lower the car about 3/8 of an inch, so hopefully that won't be a noticeable problem. And hopefully with the new spring, which seems to be about an inch taller, maybe it'll net out to be a good thing. Anyway, this is what I'm going to put in. So I've already put the spring in. I'm going to go ahead and put the shock in, and then put this side back together and go to the passenger side. They've come with these straps on them, I'm assuming to compress them and make it easier to install. So I'm not going to cut that off. Put it in bottom first and then top according to the owner's manual. I'm going to go ahead and put the bolt through the bottom. Finger tighten the nut on the bottom, just so that doesn't go shooting out. And then I'm going to line this up and cut this, and hopefully this will extend into the right spot there. I need to get the suspension jacked back into place, and then tighten these to 38 foot-pounds. This step here is not real clear to me. I'm assuming they're talking about this and having 12 millimeters between there, but it's not real clear. You see it says measure distance from tension link to body weld flange. Directly in front of it, just outboard of front mount bushing. This distance must be 12 millimeters. Well, that drawing does not look like anything in here, so I'm not 100% sure what they're talking about, but this should be the tension link, and there's roughly a 1/2 inch there, so should be golden. So with that, here and here is what we're tightening next. It's an 18 millimeter bolt there to 133 foot-pounds. And in the front, same thing, 18 millimeter to 133 foot-pounds. This jacked into place, these go to 38 foot-pounds. Now we don't tighten the lower one until after we've put the wheel on and got the suspension on the ground.